All right, we're here with Coach Bo of the Belle Vernon Lips today. Coach, if you just want to tell the people a little bit about yourself.
As you said, Bob Bove, head coach of Belle Vernon area. A little bit about where I'm from. I'm from right down the road from the podcast, good old New Eagle, Pennsylvania, part of the Ringgold School District. I'm a Ringgold graduate and wrestled while I was at Ringgold.
While we're jumping in that perfect segue, you just want to give us and the people a little bit of your background of wrestling.
Yeah, I
Where?
was fortunate enough. I was a couple times section champ at Ringgold. Uh, Probably back then, at least, more of a football school than a wrestling school. And I always thought I was going to go play football in college, but then some recruits came calling, and I ended up at the University of Pittsburgh for uh, my first 2.5 years, and then I transferred to California University of Pennsylvania when they still had wrestling, obviously, and I finished up my wrestling career there.
If memory serves correctly, you were alternate for the
Yeah,
Nationals or
back in
something?
back in those days, they would have a alternate in case somebody got hurt. I probably uh, messed up a little bit at the regional that year. I took third. They originally were going to take the third have true wrestlebacks for second, and then they at the last minute they decided not to, which was kind of unfortunate because not guaranteeing I would have won, but the kid that took second I beat pretty badly in the regular season. So I had to just kind of hang on and hope that what happens is when you're an alternate, if somebody gets hurt or can't during training, kind of like what we do now with the whippeal. If a kid gets hurt, then you get pulled in. But unfortunately, I did not get pulled in. But I did place a couple times in the NCAA regional there, and arguably maybe a little bit tougher region. We wrestled in the PSACs, which the PSACs were unbelievable back then when you still had Edinburgh and Clarion and Lock Haven and Bloomsburg. Um, all were extremely tough programs back then. Uh, so it was a trial by fire. You get your butt kicked sometimes, and if you're lucky enough, sometimes you got some butt kicking back. You got able some retribution here and there.
Don't we all know it? And then moving on from there, you went right into coaching, right? Just
Well, yeah, I was still in school for another semester after my eligibility was up, so um, my college coach asked if I would come in the room from time to time and roll around with some of the heavier kids. So I would go into the room, a couple of days a week since I was still on campus. Not really coaching, but just helping to roll around. And then I actually ran into a guy, Mike Porter, who wrestled at Pitt with me. He's an Elizabeth Forward graduate, and he asked me if I wanted to coach at McKeesport, and I said, yeah, why not? And that's kind of how it all started. I started as an assistant at McKeesport, probably 23 years old. So,
yeah, and you stayed there for how long and how many years, and kind of moving forward. I know you've been school to school, so
yeah, I was at McKeesport for 4 as an assistant, and it was fun. I was young and I was still able to roll around a lot, wrestle with kids, show a lot. Probably more of a get better just by wrestling type guy back then instead of like a move shower. I wasn't the head coach, so spent 4 years there, and then just kind of hanging out there. Really, just no real aspirations of really being a head coach. Maybe someday it would have came along, and then Chuck Colburn, who was the athletic director at Ringwood at the time, and the wrestling coach and the football coach, called me and asked me if I'd be interested in coaching Ringwood because he was getting out of wrestling. So I said, yeah, sure, why not? I put my name in and got hired. And then I spent 8 years there. And then I can't really remember something, just, time for a change, whatever the case may be. And I got hired at McGuffey, coached there for a couple years, two. And then I came back to Ringgold as an assistant and then uh, back in as a head coach for, I don't even remember, 7 or 8 years. Again, there's a lot of time commitment to being a head coach. So I kind of, I had young kids at the time, and Mike Doppelhauer, who was a coach at Belle Vernon at the time, and a friend of mine asked me if I'd be interested in just helping him instead of because he knew I was going to thinking about being stepping out of being a head coach, and I said once again, I just said, yeah, why not? And then I've been there ever since. And then when he stepped down, I took over the program at Belle Vernon. I think this is probably year 8 altogether, and 5 as the head coach at Belle Vernon.
okay, yeah, it's rich history there for sure. One of the other things we were wondering is how many some noteworthy kids that you've coached over the years, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just accolade wise. It could be work ethic. It could be someone that was a phenomenal student. Just
Give us a top five.
yeah, stuck out over everyone.
Besides both of you, since I coached both of you
Yeah.
guys. I think early on, I think when I first came to, McKeesport, first of all, we always had some tough kids. Our teams weren't particularly great, but I spent 4 years there, and I think we had a state qualifier probably 3 out of those 4 years. Probably would have been 4 for 4, but we had a really good kid, Tony DiBattista, who was tough, and he had some injury problems and some bad luck problems where we probably would have been 4 for 4. But I remember, Chip Olinsky, who was coaching at McKeesport for a while, he was a state qualifier. Jason Bertodi at heavyweight. Adam Elfer, who's the current head coach at McKeesport, wrestled for us there. Tony, who I already mentioned. A couple other guys there I'm probably forgetting that were just some good, tough kids. A couple state qualifiers. Went on to Ringgold, and I think Ringgold, when I got there, they had a really good team as far as they had good athletes there and pretty good wrestlers. Probably didn't really know how to win. So we started off pretty solidly the first year. I think we were 10-5 the first year, and then we had a really good next couple of years, including a couple state qualifiers. And it probably had been only 2 or 3 state qualifiers in the history of Ringgold before we got there. And, we had Joel Rulo, who made it back to the state tournament. We have Dave Barkey, who became the first state place winner in Ringgold history. Matt Smith, who went on to college and become a 4-time PAC champ at WNJ. Kevin DeJulius, who was an All-American at WNJ. A couple other guys that were state placers. McGuffey, I was lucky enough to coach 3 state placers in 2 years there. Matt Sherrick, who on a personal level for me was my first WPIAL champion as a coach. Garrett Hunter and Tyler Sim, they were both multiple WPIAL finalists, and Garrett took third. Tyler took third the year I was there. Went back to Ringgold, and Todd to the right me was a state qualifier and a state place winner for us. Trying to think who else off the top of my head. Jake Wisner was a state. In fact, he's still the highest placer that Ringgold's had. And, maybe they've got some nice kids there now. Maybe somebody will change that real soon. And then back on to Belle Vernon, where I was lucky enough to run into, first year we were there, we had a really good team. I think we were 14-4. Probably arguably should have won the section again. We beat Connellsville in the regular season, but they were able to turn the table on us in the section finals and beat us. But we had 5 state qualifiers that year and 3 state place winners. My personal opinion is we probably should have went 5 for 5, but it didn't work out that way. And then we've had multiple state placers and state qualifiers ever since. In fact, last year was the first year since I've been there that we didn't have a state qualifier. We came real close. We got some injury bugs and some things like that hopefully we can not have this year. Obviously, some of the tough kids we had were Zach Hartman, Brock Godson was a state qualifier, state place winner. Billy Corber was a state place winner. Jake Dunlap went on to be an All-American at Gannon. Zach was an All-American at Bucknell. More recently, Cole Waitman, he was a 3-time state place winner and a state runner-up. Zach was a state runner-up. Logan Hoffman, Logan Saliga, probably forgetting a few guys too, but just some really tough kids. And on the academic side, I've been lucky enough to we had a kid when I was at McKeesport, Jason Hernandez, who he didn't start wrestling until probably 11th grade. He went to the Naval Academy. Garrett Hunter was at the West Point. Doug Gudenberg went to the Citadel. Tyler Sim, Zach Hartman to Bucknell, great academic schools. Brian Reinhardt, who wrestled for me at Ringgold, was a Princeton graduate. So we've been lucky enough to have some really good academic wrestlers as well.
Yeah, it's super awesome to get guys, just not always wrestling in life. It's just making them better men. And I know, I can attest to that as someone who's wrestled under you. Just it's not always wrestling, as I just said. It's, can you mold these young boys into great men? And you know,
Yeah,
great coaches.
I think that's probably the best thing about wrestling is it's kind of hard to spend any time in wrestling at all and not be successful in life. I think there's the things that wrestling teaches you, and I'm not talking success as far as making a lot of money. That's a personal choice of what path you go down, but just successful and being happy with what you do and a family man and that sort of thing. I think wrestling teaches you all those important lessons. And that's kind of what we try to instill. Like I personally have always been more focused on the individual. I get it. Some coaches will probably argue it's team first, and maybe they have more team success than me as a coach. But I've always been focused on individual. Nobody gets recruited for wrestling because they're on a good team. That's what they're like. And we've always our goal as coaching staff has always been let's get these kids ready for the next level if that's what they choose to do. If they want to be able to wrestle in college, we want to make sure that we prepare them for that. That's always been our goal. Wins, losses, yeah, that's great. We all want to win. We all want shiny medals around our neck, but our goal is to prepare them for the next step in their journey, even if it's not wrestling in college.
Absolutely, yeah. And then moving forward, talking about this upcoming year, how just kind of walk us a little bit through how the off season's going for Belle Vernon.
Excuse me. Now it's tough for us just because this is going to sound bad when I first say it, but it's not meant to be a bad thing. We kind of have the curse of a good football team. So we have a lot of football players that wrestle. Probably good for both, really good for the football team. They've been really successful, obviously, the past few years, and last year winning a state title, and this year probably arguably being the favorites to win again. So a lot of those kids are occupied with football, but that still keeps them lifting and working out. So that's not a bad thing. We do have some kids that wrestle all year. Connor Hoffman, who's an eighth grader, wrestle all year. A couple other of the eighth graders wrestle all year. We got some guys are going to Super 32. Elijah Brown, he was a freshman for us last year and won 35 matches as a freshman, made it to the Double A regional. He was a qualifier for Fargo and almost was an All American the first time he ever wrestled freestyle. Have probably 8 to 9 kids wrestling. Lifting all year. That was probably a first for us. It's kind of hard to get kids. Like kids go to club in the summertime. Uh, just trying to give them the opportunity to work out if they don't go to club or they don't play another sport. So that's worked out pretty well in the off season.
For sure, yeah. And we're obviously aware of everything. So the Belle Vernon's just been a little light on numbers, but the quality is certainly there. So speaking towards that, how's this upcoming year going to look for you guys?
I think unfortunately we're still going to be pretty light in numbers. Unfortunately, we're probably only looking at 10 kids, maybe 11. We have a talented group of freshmen, but unfortunately, they're all middleweights and up, and our 10 guys we have back are all middleweights and up. So I don't necessarily know off the top of my head right now if we'll be moving any of those freshmen up. Um, it, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to move them up just to sit behind somebody. I get it if injuries happen and things like that. It'd be nice to have a backup, but I'm not gonna jeopardize someone's full season to potentially wrestle part of a season. So most likely, most of those kids will be down. Obviously, if we can call somebody up, we will that can fill a spot. But again, we're not going to just call them up just in case. So our junior high team should do really well. They were 6-1 last year. We got about 20 kids on the junior high, most of who have some experience wrestling. Some of them have a whole lot of experience wrestling. Varsity wise, I like the kids we have. Obviously, we don't have enough of them, but the 9 or 10 kids we're going to put out on the mat, they're 9 or 10 solid kids, and probably 4 or 5 really tough kids. So I don't really see a weak spot in our lineup, but we just don't have enough kids. I guess the weak spot is probably the 3 or 4 forfeits we'll give up every match. But I'm expecting really good things from the kids that we have coming back. Some of them will get a late start, obviously, if the football team makes it as far as what everyone thinks. But again, I guess that's a good problem to have if you're a high school athlete that you're playing football and your football team is good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so in closing, we just kind of wanted to go over your schedule and what you expect, and if there's anything you want to just lay out for the schedule, just where
Yeah,
and when.
yeah. Our schedule is pretty much the same as last year. Obviously, the section matches are dictated by the WKL. We don't have a lot of extra dual meets because, again, we understand where we're at in our progression as a team. We just don't have a full team, so we don't do a lot of dual meets. We do a dual meet tournament at the end of the year. Most of our tournaments obviously are geared more towards individual because, again, that's what we have. Um, I think we'll be a tough wrestle once we get everybody back, once we get football players back. I think, like I said, there's 9 or 10 kids that we put out on a mat. I'm looking at probably, I think 7 or 8 of those guys could probably be 25, 30 match winners, and that's pretty significant. And we'll see. We were 6-6 with 9 guys last year, 10 guys last year. I'm hoping for the same type of success, if you want to call 6-6 that we do when we're only putting 9 guys out on the mat, and half of them missed. 4 of them missed till Christmas, right, because of football. But again, we have high expectations, especially as individuals. We want to get state qualifiers again. We want to get state place winners again. We've had a pretty good string of WPIL finalists, so want to get back on getting a few more of those and some champs crowned again. And just, again, focus on individuals. And the team stuff will be what it is. I mean, we're not going to go there to lose to anyone. We expect to beat everyone. If we only put 9 or 10 guys out on that mat, we want 9 or 10 guys to come out of that dual meet victorious. And if that happens, we'll win more than we lose. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we're just looking forward to like we wrestle in the Fred Bell tournament, which is probably an underrated tournament for people who don't know about it up in Grove City. Yeah, it's a tough tournament. We wrestle. Westmoreland County tournament is probably one of the tougher. It's probably one of the tougher county tournaments. Maybe the toughest county tournament in Pennsylvania, probably, arguably, right?
The
Chambersburg goes to the Trojan War again, another tough tournament. And we go to a nice tournament in Ohio at the beginning of the year that gets our kids a decent amount of matches. It helps our really young kids get kind of acclimated to what high school wrestling is, because it is a lot different than junior high wrestling. Even if you were a good junior high wrestler, it's a little bit of a learning curve there.
An eye opener for sure. Dean, did you have anything you wanted to?
I think we pretty much covered everything. So
no crazy hypotheticals for Coach Bove.
No hypotheticals.
No what ifs.
No what ifs.
All right.
Unless Todd wants some. No.
I mean, I think the people want it, not me. So.
Okay, Todd. Todd, I'll give Bove a hypothetical I've been giving people.
All right.
You're a superhero. You can pick one person on your wrestling team in the last 5 years. So even if they graduated within the last 5 years, to be your sidekick. Who do you pick? What would their superpower be?
That is a crazy hypothetical. That's a hard question to answer, too. I don't know. I'd probably have to pick someone that's not obvious. And I don't know. I probably would pick a superpower that would make me look better.
He's the sidekick, right?
So their superpower probably wouldn't be much of a superpower.
Pecking order.
Yeah, that's my hypothetical is. I don't really know who the sidekick would be, but your job is just to make me look good. That's all.
Well,
should be an easy job.
Well, your nephew, he picked somebody on his wrestling team, and he wanted him to have stretchy arms so he can reach stuff that he can't get to.
Sounds like something he would wish for.
I'm like, you would have superpowers too. You'd basically be his boss. He's like, yeah, and I'd tell him to reach for stuff I can't get.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck this season. And good luck with wrestling.
All right. Thank you, guys. And I think this is a great thing that's happening, and get another wrestling more exposure. And that's what it needs for sure.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.